Okay, so yeah, okay. So, oh, at least the good news that the previous tour has been recorded. So this is the layout of the old city, the Jaffa Gate. But previous tour we started in the new gate, and this is exactly where the recap begins. Where the recap begins. The new gate. So the newest gate opened in the 19th century in the old city, just to let the Christian communities, the members of the Christian and Russian compound as well, that emerged in the 19th century. They needed a quick access to the old city. Otherwise, they would have to go to the Jaffa Gate, which when they were all located from there on the Sultan Suleiman Street, and well, it wasn't really convenient. And the new gate is the one of the ways to the Christian Quarter, and also many consider Armenian Quarter part of the Christian Quarter. However, Armenian group is Armenian Christianity is really really different from all the other denominations. Now we're entering through the Jaffa Gate, and this is actually a combination of different tours, different videos that I took throughout my almost 2 years in Israel, and also then a few videos I recorded just just several weeks ago when I was in Jerusalem. And This is important because I will be referring to it later on, because on our way, be it New Gate or be it Jaffa Gate, you need to pass by this massive thing, which is a museum. It's called Tower of David. However, it has nothing to do with King David, but it's originally the palace that King Herod built for himself after alongside with the construction of the revamping of the second temple. And and this area was used as fortress throughout the 2000s of years by all the other people that control Jerusalem. And if you pass, so you go past the big territory of the Tower of David Museum, and this is how you enter Armenian Quarter. This part of the video, well, this particular video I filmed in 2022, and the Russian flag is no longer there, but the Armenian flags are there. However, the Armenian Tavern, I never saw it open. I guess it closed with the pandemic and never reopened, or I wasn't just lucky enough to. Otherwise, I would have visited, because there are some dishes, from the Armenian cuisine that I really, really like. But I also doubt you will be able to find them in Armenia. In Israel, in the Armenian Quarter. But I haven't been there. I don't know. I haven't been to that tavern. Of course, everywhere you go in the Armenian Quarter, Mary, thank you so much for the coffees. You will find posters, or at least some memorial plaques about the Armenian genocide. This is inevitable, and we will be talking about it anyway. But we won't be focusing this much on this topic. We will be focusing on the Armenian Quarter itself. So, and as we go to the right-hand side from us is the territory of the Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem, and the road that we're walking actually has the name, the Road of Armenian Patriarchs. It's kind of an unofficial name, but that's what every Armenian says. The current Patriarch of Armenia is Nurhan Manukyan, and the Armenian Apostolic Church in Jerusalem is very different. Well, Armenian Christianity is different from all the other Christianities, but also Armenian Apostolic Church in Jerusalem is different from all the other Armenian churches. We will speak about it in a minute. So now we are entering kind of the central part of the Armenian Quarter, and this is the ceramic workshop that we visited together with you last time. That's where the tour was by Harut himself. That's Harut, and this is the small thing that I bought for my parents. I also bought something for my mom-in-law, and just took some gazillion of selfies as well because it's a beautiful place and Armenian ceramics is just a fantastic thing. And we spoke about the history of Armenian ceramics and why you can't find these ceramics in Armenia itself, also on the previous tour. So I will not be getting to it now. And what else do we see here? So basically, to the left-hand side, well, to the right-hand side, so we saw the Armenian Patriarchate, right? We saw the ceramic workshop, and also the right-hand side is the seminary, because well, the Armenian presence, the Armenian presence is absolutely ongoing ever since the very beginning of the year 300, right? 301. This is when Armenians converted to Christianity, or they adopted it as their state religion. And this is when the first Armenians came to the Holy Land. And from then on, the presence of Armenians would be, well, yeah, it will be continuous, even under, throughout different periods. That's pretty remarkable. We will be talking about some of these periods a lot more. And however, to the right-hand side, this kind of a question. Okay, what is that? Because it's just a wall with buildings. In fact, almost everything about the Armenian Quarter is actually behind these walls, and it's not accessible to general public. That's an issue. So that's why Armenian Quarter is so often like overlooked even. So when they ask tourists, okay, have you been to the old city? Oh yes, I've seen Christian Quarter, Jewish Quarter, Muslim Quarter, obviously. Like it's really hard to miss. Okay, and what about the Armenian? And then they start thinking, okay, did they actually see the Armenian Quarter? You kind of pass by it. It's just because it is built like a compound within, like a smaller compound within the old city. But it's not that bad because there are still some areas you can access. The others you need to arrange visit, or you need to have friends in the Armenian Quarter like myself. Yeah, anyway, so what do we see here? Oh, this is the most important Armenian church in Jerusalem, and one of the very, very, very important churches for Armenians around the world, St. James Cathedral. And I found some old photographs for you. This is, by the way, the burial procession for one of the patriarchs of the Armenian church. And the procession obviously would the burial ceremony and the procession would start from here and then would end on the territory of the convent, which premises we are also going to explore in the next episode, which I haven't scheduled yet, but I will, I promise. I know it's such a bummer that I haven't had the time to do that. Yeah, and well, there are some photographs. There are a lot more photographs of the Armenian Quarter, which I will be sharing as in the upcoming tours. And the reason for it is very simple, because the very first photography workshop in Jerusalem was opened by Armenians. So we have, well, let's say the earliest photographs of Jerusalem and the Holy Land in general was taken by Armenians. And this is something that many of us actually are not aware of, right? So, but trust me, I will tell you more about what Armenians were very, very good at and were also pioneers of in the Holy Land in the next tour, because I have a short video of a very special museum, which I'll tell you shortly about. Yeah. Anyway, let's go on. Как там Гриша? Sorry, just нормально? Okay. Sorry, I just had to ask how Grisha is. Yes. And as you can see, not really much, not well, okay, something has changed, but not much. So the building, this is still the same building. It looks a little bit more ornate, but I suppose it's just the turmoil of the 20th century. And it looks like, well, it's not so easy to date the building if you just look at the walls. However, there were a lot of bricks I actually knew or were just renewed with the plaster. However, for those who have done previous tours with me on the architecture of the old city, especially in the Muslim Quarter, you will recognize easily the details from the Mamluk period, such as the Muqarnas, several parts of the building were constructed in the Mamluk period. This is true. Let me get back a little bit. Sorry, not this. Over here, from the both sides of the entrance, you see the niches, and in the top parts of the niches, they look a little bit like crystals, right? This is what is called muqarnas in architecture. This is very typical for the Mamluk period. The Mamluk period that is roughly 13, 14, 15, and bits of the 16th century. That's the presence of the Mamluks in the Holy Land and Jerusalem in particular. So this is the Saint James Cathedral, and actually this church is it's convent. It's not just a cathedral; it's a convent, and it's consecrated to actually two Jameses. Well, James the Great, James the Elder. Well, I just thought to include this artwork by Peter Paul Rubens, right? So one of the apostles, and also. There's the same Saint James that is a patron saint of Spain, whose body is believed to be buried in Santiago de Compostela in Galicia, right, in this church. But Armenians believe that the head of James the Elder is buried on the territory of the convent. And also, James the Just, the very first bishop of Jerusalem. His body is also believed to be buried on the territory of the convent. And so this is how they basically venerate two saints, two some of the most fundamental saints in Christianity in this convent. And this is the main the main church for Armenians. And yeah, so this is the Muqarnas, and you can see that some sections of these niches still have some pigment. Well, this pigment is also significant during the Mamluk period. They would sometimes paint some elements in red, and there would be just kind of the striped patterns on sometimes they would decorate with this ablac doorways or niches or the pseudoports, so right, the decorations about the doorway, or these niches in particular. And so we have a little bit of what's left, and you probably saw in the photographs, right, that I showed you, that they used to be a lot more ornate back in the days, but I guess the 20th century just left its mark. And I promise that I will be talking in a nutshell, not in details, because we are focusing more on some other topics, but still it's quite important to mention that the main church of all Armenians, the head church of all Armenians, but Jerusalem Patriarchate, is the Echmadzin Cathedral, which is one of the oldest cathedrals in the world. And taking a moment for you to take it in. Has it sunk in? So originally, almost immediately after adopting Christianity, the first Echmadzin Cathedral was constructed, and then it was significantly rebuilt and looked pretty much just like this in the 5th century. So which makes it one of the oldest cathedrals in the world. Echmadzin Cathedral. So this is the main church for all Armenians around the world, but Jerusalem Patriarchate. Because for the Jerusalem Armenians, St. James Cathedral is the main one. As you enter, you're not allowed to film actually inside the cathedral, but I was allowed to film in the courtyard. Also, I will, as a little bit of it. Okay, I'm just kind of a bit of a spoiler. I have very short videos of the cathedral itself. The videos that I took them back in 2023 when I was studying for my tour guide course. But well, tourists do take videos anyway, so it's not like I'm the only one who accidentally just filmed a few bits of this and that. And I don't think this is going to be any consequences to that. But just out of respect, obviously, I will not be showing the entire video. I don't have the entire video. So this is the courtyard of the convent. And well, we walked past that wall. You saw a lot of windows from the outside. Well, you will see a lot more windows also over the courtyard itself. And what is going on here? So this is the part of the living quarters, and in the Armenian Quarter, it's not just only the monks and the clergy and the patriarch that live in the Armenian Quarter. There are also a lot of descendants, just secular people, secular Armenians, the descendants of those who fled from the Armenian genocide. They're still living here, just the seculars. So it's not, please don't think that it's only the religious Armenians who live in Jerusalem. That's not the case at all. What are we looking at here? This is the Hachkar. Hachkar is the Armenian cross. And Armenian crosses are way more than just crosses. They are sculptures, they are symbols, and here they kind of put together the idea of a cross and also, well, the head of James the Elder. So this is the head of James the Elder, and above it, the cross. So you can never, well, you can never go wrong with Armenian cross. I mean, and no, okay, it's not probably the best way of saying that. So you will always recognize the Armenian cross because it has this floral patterns on the end, on the edges, and well, because um, it's about life, it's about prosperity, um, it's about the new beginnings. That's what many Armenians actually told me as well. So Armenian cross is very different. It's quite distinct. And all this, there are a lot of hachkars you will see in the Armenian Quarter, and they are made from a local stone in Armenia that is the kind of a tufo. And we saw a lot of this stone in Armenia because I visited Armenia a couple of years ago, and we saw a lot of buildings clad with with facades clad with tufo, mainly pink one, but yellow as well. Well, this type of tufo, and also many of these hachkars are burned. Why are they burned? Well, to show the damage that had been done to to Armenians, right, by the Ottomans throughout the centuries, and obviously mainly 1915 genocide. Okay, I should probably stop pronouncing this word because YouTube will consider I'm saying something wrong. I don't know, but nevertheless, so these are all the living quarters of the Armenian Quarter, also the convent as well, and the clergy. Another hachkar, so that's the hachkar with the James the First Bishop of Jerusalem, and also there are a lot of different descriptions that was from the Bible, and also a lot of inscriptions that and a lot of etchings of crosses that were left here either by the monks or by the pilgrims. Well, but the ones of pilgrims, they are a lot less elaborate, obviously. And you can easily say, okay, this was left by the pilgrims that just simply wanted to leave their mark. Well, because, well, yeah, I've been here. I've been here. I can understand that. I can see where it comes from. And also, you could see one inscription in Arabic. That's from the Ottoman times. Interesting, right? So there's something we need to clarify. So as I said, that Armenian presence here, Christian Armenian presence in Jerusalem is ongoing for 2,000 years. Well, almost for 2,000 years. And, well, okay, 1,700 years. That was a bit too much. So, and, and we know, just from your general history courses and from my tours that the Holy Land changed hands so many times. Well, there was a Persian period. There was in the 614, there was Persian invasion to the Holy Land, and this is when many Christian buildings, Byzantine period Christian facilities were destroyed. And also the St. James Cathedral and some other churches were destroyed, obviously. I mean, not this cathedral, but the one that used to be on the spot, because the current church was built on the spot of the older church built in the Byzantine period. So, at least for several centuries, because there had been the destruction during the Persian period, some buildings were just lost. They just disappeared. But shortly after the Persian invasion, which was very, very short-lived, just for about 15 years, eventually the Byzantines were able to fight back and keep the control of the Jerusalem for about a decade. And then in 638, Muslims and Fatimids came to the Holy Land. And Armenian presence, so Christian presence and Jewish presence in the Holy Land under Muslims was okay. It was fine. Islam does recognize Christianity and Judaism because it stems from it anyway, and Armenian presence was here. However, the biggest religious buildings would be constructed in the Crusader period, just as this building and this particular church. So it dates to the Crusader period. So the first crusade came here in 1099, and up until 1187, Crusaders would be in charge of Jerusalem. After that, they would be ousted and only occupy the coastal plain of the Holy Land. And then in the end of the 1200s, the Mamluks would completely deal with the Crusaders. So I'm just sharing with you a little bit of what I could film back in 2023. I'm not sure exactly when it was. So when we visited the quarter, it was part of our study course, and yeah, it's not going to be easy for Misha. Obviously, I know what it's like to study and to work, and then come home. He comes home like at 10 p.m. and then he also teaches at 10 p.m. Because some of his students live in Europe, so they're like 3 hours before Misha. So yeah, it's going to be tough a little bit. Anyway, so this is the Armenian church, the St. James Church. A lot of very old icons here. Quite dim light. This is just the daylight, but when it gets dark, they turn on the lamps and candles, and it looks really magical. And the outer walls, so the wall that we passed by, right? And also that wall, where we saw the inscription in Arabic. This was already the construction of the Ottoman period, that is, after the Mamluks. So in 1516, the Ottomans, the Ottomans invaded the Holy Land, invaded Palestine region, and Ottomans, just like Mamluks, recognized Armenians. Armenians could live. They just saw Christians and Jews under the Ottomans just had to pay a tax that granted them protection, and that was it. So, and the great development of Armenian Quarter happened under the Ottomans, and they actually were very on really good terms with the Ottomans. Well, which is amazing. some more footage of one of the chapels of St. James Cathedral. Look at all these stone carvings. Incredible. Look at the Armenian cross. Look at all the details. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Well, I'm sorry the quality is not really that good. But I guess it's better than nothing. I could have shared with you just photographs, but photographs, I mean, photographs are okay. You can easily Google for them. There are also, better videos on YouTube you can find. So it's just a little bit of what I have. And I'm not sure why they have these very, very thick, uh, tapestries. I guess it's probably to avoid the draft. I'm not entirely sure. But I also promised to talk to you about why for Jerusalem Armenians, Echmadzin Church, well, it's not the main one, right? Why it's St. James? Well, because of the Ottomans. In 1852, the Ottomans made all the communities in Jerusalem sign the status quo agreement. And according to that agreement, well, yeah, these are the crosses left by the pilgrims. See, they're way less elaborate than ones that we have seen on the other walls. Some inscriptions also left, well, but they're in Armenian, so I don't read in Armenian. But we will speak about some of the graffitis left in the Armenian Quarter when we visit the museum, which I haven't spoken about yet, but I'm going to. And yeah, and I will make up for those 10 minutes that I was away helping my son. So we are going to overrun, but it's totally okay if you have to leave. I understand you. You probably have far more fun plans for your Sunday than this. So I will explain a few things and then we will go on with the video. So status quo meant that, there were a certain schedule on which religious holidays, Christian holidays, mainly, right? Mainly Christian. It referred to Christian denominations mainly, right? And also the management of Christian sites as well within Jerusalem Old City. But it involved Arab communities as well, Muslim communities as well that's involved, and well, a little bit Jewish communities too, but it mainly referred to the Holy Sepulchre Church, obviously, and all the Christian denominations to avoid conflicts, to avoid any kind of disagreement and just chaos. That's very often just took place. Well, so let me break it down to you in this way. So status quo basically was kind of a set of rules that clearly distributed the let's say the area within the Holy Sepulchre Church. So the certain area of the Holy Sepulchre Church will be given to these denominations, and this area to these denominations. So the distribution of this the spots in the Holy Sepulchre Church, also different celebration of holidays within different communities as well, and several other things with regards to different procedures and administrative issues, well, just dealt within denominations and among denominations. That was it. And it was decided that the Armenian Church in Jerusalem would only report to the Patriarch of Jerusalem, the Jerusalem Patriarchate of Armenian Church. That was it. So, and also because of that, well, the schedule of the holidays with the calendar that was used by the community is also different, and that's exactly why it's an interesting thing throughout the Armenian Christianity that Christmas and Epiphany are celebrated on one and the same day. Well, for example, in Orthodox Christianity in Russia, so 7th of January, it's Christmas, and then On the 19th of January is the Epiphany, right? So the Russian Orthodox Church is using the Gregorian calendar, and the Armenian Church is using a bit different calendar. It's like quasi Roman calendar, and they celebrate both Christmas and they basically say you can say they're using Gregorian calendar. I don't want to go into this; it's gonna be really confusing. And they're celebrating Epiphany and Christmas on the 19th of January, and it's only in Armenia. It's only in Jerusalem. That's just it. Sorry, I've been making you you've been looking at this for far too long. I'm sorry for that. Yeah. So now we've spoken about the seminary. So you just walk, you see the wall, and you think, okay, and you just probably don't even give it a second thought. Okay, what's going on there behind the wall? So there is a big convent there. There is a big church, the most important church for Armenians in Jerusalem, and a very important church for Armenians all over the world. To the right hand side is the territory with a fence, and no one is really allowed there. But this is the seminary. The seminary, I have never been on the territory, but I'm not allowed to be there. And I have seen maybe just a little bit more than an average visitor to Jerusalem, just because I'm a tour guide and I attended a couple of the Shtarmiyot, the advanced courses, and I also was on a study tour. Okay, so maybe a little bit more than everyone else, but there is so much more just hidden from us, and I only have the photos of it. But it is what it is anyway. So this is the seminary, and only the students of the seminary and the teachers and obviously the monks and patriarchs and the clergy can visit. They have a lovely garden. They have basically the seminary is located on the same plot of land that once palace of Herod the Great used to be. So this is the territory that's still kind of the continuation of the Tower of David Museum, but obviously the museum territory was there, right? But originally, 2000 years ago, there was a Herod's palace there. Now we are walking through another archway. Again, we are not really aware of what's going on behind the wall, but that's where the living quarters and the schools, just the public school, a public Armenian school, and a museum, and several workshops are. And to the right hand side is a very interesting place. By the way, this is the video I filmed a few weeks ago when I was in Jerusalem. The big parking lot, and it's a very big contentious issue that I will be briefly talking about. It has nothing to do with history. It has everything to do with human nature. But okay, let's start from the beginning. So the big parking lot. I mean, it's amazing. The old city desperately needs parking, and this is one of the very few parking lots you can find in the old city. There's also a bigger one from the Zion Gate, but you kind of have the idea. So, but it's not just, whenever it's the old city of Jerusalem, it's never just. What we're looking at is the walls of the old city. And these are the walls all that had been built, well, 2000 years ago. Originally, yes, but then, as you know, the walls were torn down several times, and the last time the walls were rebuilt would be during the Ottoman period. And I told you that this is still the area where Herod's palace used to be. Okay, so let's kind of start from the beginning. During Herod's times, actually, we are not entirely sure when exactly that area got its name, but it looks like the name is way older even than the times of Herod. So that garden, that area of Jerusalem was called the Cow's Garden. There were some gardens obviously outside of the walls of Jerusalem, and then Jerusalem old city walls would change the layout of the old city would also change. So the Cow's Garden name is a very old one. But then, Herodian Palace, and then We know that it was torn down. Eventually, it was just kind of the empty plot of land, and it was used for all sorts of camps. And with regards to the Armenian narrative, this was the site where the camp for the refugees, the survivors of the Armenian genocide, would be placed. This is heartbreaking. It is what it is. And so there are quite a lot of photographs, and I'm just sharing a few of them. Well, camps. It's just camps, right? And well, first it was just makeshift camps, make well, it would be just places to live and some blankets. Later on, there would be a bigger camp. So this is 1927. This is also in 1927. There was a very big earthquake, and you remember, if you remember my tours of the Temple Mount, well, the Al-Aqsa Mosque was really badly damaged, exactly in that very same earthquake. And many other sites in Jerusalem were damaged, but that in particular. So that camp, it was also used for, following the earthquake too. And if you see, the photo was provided by Eli Kavajidian. So this is one of the families that stayed in Jerusalem. And this photo, well, it was taken by, it was processed in the Armenian photography workshop. And there were a lot of other photographs from the private archives, so I'm just sharing a couple of them. So, and the descendants of those people, well, of those Armenians who came, well, who survived the genocide, are still living in Jerusalem. They're still living in, exactly behind those doors. So there are living quarters there too. And, well, how do we know that originally, during the Herod times, that his palace would, the territory of his palace would stretch up until here, basically from the Jaffa Gate to the Zion Gate? Well, because there were some excavations, and there were found mosaics, really elaborate mosaics, and also there were found, some stones, that would kind of um, be suggestive of the layout of some of the rooms and the size of the rooms and so on and so forth. So we kind of had an idea that there was something quite opulent and Roman. Obviously, later on it was all filled up, and it's now there under the parking lot. It was all legit. It was all good. So everyone knows. So the salvage excavations were carried out in 2020, in 2021, 2022. So this is, when everything eventually was sealed, and the parking lot has been functioning quite okay. But yeah, it always blows my mind, just knowing that there are like 2,000 year old mosaic there under those boards. And so there are a lot of boards in Israel. Anyway, so I promised also to share with you another story from the modern times. So several years ago, Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem signed a deal with the Jewish Australian community and the development company. And it was about just developing some of the territories that belong to Armenian Patriarchate, not only in Jerusalem, not in the old city, but also outside of the old city. But it just happened so that some parts of the Armenian Quarter, I mean, within the old city, would be also affected. And the plan was to build a hotel there and some facilities for tourists and everything. And that agreement, it was the lease agreement for 98 years. this was all over the news. It was a big scandal, so nobody was told, and then the local Armenian community found out about it. There were riots, there were strikes there. So then this is when the Patriarchate of Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem decided to back down, and they initiated a lawsuit of trying to cancel the deal. So it's kind of the litigation that's going to start for years, but that so far it's not really dealt with yet. Uh, it is what it is nowadays. But at least there's definitely not going to be any construction of whatsoever in the old city or in the Armenian Quarter. But you have the idea. So I've been talking about a certain museum, right? That I have a short video. So this museum is actually not a museum; it's the museum of Edward and Helen Madrigyan of Armenian heritage. The museum reopened just this year. It was closed for restoration. It was closed because of pandemic. It was closed because of the wars, and it reopened last summer. I mean, not this year, last year. When I was there this time, it was closed. But when I was there in summer, it was open, and I visited it, and I was able to film not everything, but quite a lot. So I will be taking you to that museum next time, and to another convent yet, but just to kind of for you to have an idea. So this is Edward and Helen Mardigan. I will not be going into a lot of details just now, but the family of Edward managed to leave Turkey because, as you know, before genocide, uh, um, the Ottomans for centuries were occupying big parts of the north of Armenia, and but the Armenian population just lived there, continued living on those territories shortly before the genocide, like in 19, it's not like genocide happened just in 1915. Obviously, during the First World War times and even before that, there would be still a lot of outbreaks, the conflict, a lot of um, clashes. Okay, let's put it like this: a lot of clashes, and eventually, so the family of Edward Mardigan were able to flee Turkey, and they ended up in the States, in Michigan, and Edward Mardigan became an engineer, and he worked well for a company, and then he was able to start his own engineering company after the Second World War. He became very rich. He was also involved in a lot of activities in the Armenian community, and there is a big Armenian presence in the States. And that's how he met his wife. That was Steve, by the way, 1942, but not 1952, sorry. And they became very rich. They became they established even the charity foundation to support Armenian communities all around the state, in Armenia, and also, of course, in the Holy Land. This is one of the interesting exhibits in the museum, somehow related to Napoleon. I will tell you next time. I hope it's been a good enough teaser. So I will schedule this next episode shortly, and I promise I will share the story. But for now, we are not going to the museum, and I owe you like another 5 minutes of the tour, and then we'll have the Q&A, and that would be it. So this is, I think this is actually what we're going to do. I will tell you the story of the library, and then the rest I'll share with you next time. And also from the both sides of the library, you can see again more of the Armenian crosses, the Hachkars. So you see it, you will see a cross, but you will also see more than that. You will see a lot of flowers, a lot of solar symbols, pomegranates, and you could see also people. You could see saints. You could see angels and other figures from the New Testament. well, technically speaking, this small square is the only area, like general public, non-Armenians, can visit. Well, library technically you can also visit. Let me just do it like this. Yeah, okay. Because I don't want to overrun too much, and I don't want to keep you waiting. So next time I will make up for what we skipped today. But so you see, this is a very small territory. You can see this is it. So over there ahead of us is the entrance to the museum. So museum, of course, anyone can visit. Other than that, there is school, there is a convent, there are a few more, areas to visit. Well, I mean areas, but they're not open to visit. This is it. So we're only limited to that. This is uh, interesting, right? This is interesting. So the library, what is this library? This is one of the biggest libraries on the Armenian manuscripts and just the books in Armenian language and Armenian history, some ancient books as well, several versions of the Bible in Armenian, altogether about 100,000 exhibits. 100,000 books. And the library is named after Galust Gulbenkian. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this name, but back in early 20th century, those people involved in politics, economy, oil trade, and warfare knew who Gulbenkian was. Um, that's him. He was one of well, when he passed away, he was one of the richest men in the world. He happened to be in the Middle East and particularly, well, on the territory of future Iraq, the territory of Iraq, and also he also knew everyone in Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and he was just there when the Iraqi oil refineries started to function, and he just was able there to he was able to uh, purchase lots of land and purchase shares of several that would eventually become the Iraqi petroleum company and several other petroleum companies controlled by Europe on the territory of Iraq. And he created those deposits that would be used by Europeans, during the First World War and several other wars in the Middle East. So he was in charge, and he also helped later on the British Petroleum and several other oil companies to sign the deals, and he always had his 5% share. And he was called Mr. 5%. That's how he became that rich. And eventually he went to Portugal, and in Portugal there was established a big fund, and his descendants are still there in Portugal. They run the foundation, they help Armenian diaspora all around the world, and they are still very rich. So the Iraqi oil, who would have thought, right? Anyway, so that's him. So he was a brilliant student. Obviously, he was given a good education. This is him together with his wife. I'm not going into too much details now because we're running out of time. Well, he was just a very respected member of the community, a member of the government. I would say very good friend with a lot of politicians, and one of the richest men in the world, kind of a little bit behind the scenes. Yeah, just he just had his 5%. And speaking of the library, so I've never been inside, but you can see some photographs. You can just find some photographs online. And I have my absolute favorite photograph, which you can find in Wikipedia, by the way. If you go to Wikipedia to read more about the library, you will find this photograph. I like it. I'm so sorry. It's yeah, okay. It just cracked me up. This is it. Okay, let's have the Q&A. I am very sorry, and I feel very uncomfortable that we just had a little bit of the intermission. The chat is open for questions, and I'm sharing here the links only to my website, where you can find a bunch of links, by the way, for some tours that are already scheduled with the virtual tours. Not tomorrow, but around these days, I will be sharing the schedule for the upcoming weekend. It's going to be a very special tour done by me and Risha. It's going to be his birthday tour. He's turning 10. And he had this, it was his idea. He wanted to do something special. He wanted to have something meaningful. That's what he said. I want a meaningful tour. So let's make it some, let's he doesn't want it to be a cooking tour. He wanted some content, some filming, taking him to Tbilisi. So we will be working on that as well. Yes, he's turning 10 on Monday. Yeah, that's February 16th. Thank you so much, Chef. Again, I'm sorry for the inconveniences, all the numbers. Yes, exactly. Big boy, the big boy. Yeah. Dolores, thank you so much for the tips. So thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, it's been a bit of a wild evening, actually. A lot of technical issues, but all is well that ends well, that's for sure. Thank you for finding time to join me on these journeys. First, Anton Chekhov with Misha, and then Tbilisi, and then Armenian Quarter in Jerusalem. It's been quite a journey, right? Across three cultures, across three countries. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, everyone. And it's thank you, Cindy. Yeah, I will be sharing a bit more about the library. Well, and I will be also bringing up a little bit more stories of some of the Armenians that should have been known better, should have been remembered better. They are remembered by the Armenians, sure, but everyone should know about that. Yeah, we'll be sharing the recording, Jolie, not a problem. Yeah, but just later on. Absolutely. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I will see you next weekend. So as you know, next weekend, Misha will be taking a break. But instead of it, Risha and I will be making it up for it. Yes, not a problem. It's a solution. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, and bye bye. And thank you so much for your tips as well. Thank you for your support and always being here for me and waiting for me while I was just trying to rinse Grisha's eyes because he just almost like I don't know emptied the shampoo bottle on his eye. I don't know how he did that. Yeah. But it's okay. It's all sorted. She just wanted it to be me, not Misha, so I had to take over. And Misha had to fill in for me. Bye bye.